Hi, my name is Reverend Carol Kiama, and this is Season 3 of Thoughts of a Shaken Pastor. In this season, we've been addressing the whole issue of deconstruction. Why is it that people walk out of faith after so many years of talking about Christ as their Lord and Savior, and then towards the end, they lose faith? And why is it that some people go through the same things and hold on to faith? Today, I'm with my friend Sue, and she's going to talk about some very difficult season in her life and how her faith carried her through. Welcome, Sue. Sasa, let me start by first saying that I was really, really happy to do the show with you, with Sue, and I can't wait for it to be aired.
Wow.
Yeah. So thank you for coming. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Susan Kiruma. I am, I'm a wife.
Yes.
A mother. A pastor's wife. And yes.
And you're a minister in your own
right.
right.
I'm a minister in my own,
Yeah.
She keeps on pushing it. Yes, I am a minister in my own capacity. So I thank God, and I'm honored to be here today.
Thank you so much for taking time to tell us your story. Now, I know you're married.
Yes.
You're married to Josh.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. How did you meet?
Well, my story is interesting, how we met. Mine is always a book. First of all, I met Josh. My marriage story and how we met is always a movie, but we met 2003, got married 2010.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why it's a movie. And I at that point, I didn't even think about being married to a pastor. I just saw a handsome man, and my heart was drawn to that handsome man. Alikuwa romantic, alizidiwa sapere. As in, he was behaving like a Luo man, you know.
Hey, okay.
Movies every day, 20th century, nikajikuta nilingia ndani ya box, and I closed it myself. But the truth is, I am happy. I can say I'm happy, and I'm honored to be his wife and the mother of his children. Though it has not been easy getting married to a pastor, but yes, it's been a good journey.
You have 2 girls.
I have 2 girls.
And I know your heart has always been for girls.
Yes.
One of the things that maybe we just need to let them know is we've done a lot of ministry with girls.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually met you when we were teenagers, and I remember going to a local church, and you would be sitting in a corner and singing so beautifully, and I pray that people will get a chance to hear you sing in this show. But tell me about your Christian journey. When did you become a Christian? Were you born in a Christian home?
Yes, I was born in a Christian home, in a full setup. But literally giving my life to Christ, I gave my life to Christ in class 8.
In class 8?
Totally.
What happened?
No, Bishop Tembo was just preaching to Kioko Jew, and he spoke about Jesus is coming soon. I just saw how I was being left. And that day it was the main service, and I was the only person who got saved on that service.
Oh, wow. Wow. And you've held on to this faith.
Yes, so that's why I don't despise when I see small children giving their lives to Christ. I'm sure 1% or 2, they are very serious, and God will sustain them. But I think as well, Carol, God was preparing me for a journey that I didn't see then, but after life continued, I realized if I didn't have Christ, I would have rather become a prostitute, a drug addict, or dead by now. This Susan would not be alive. And
talk us about that journey.
So, my parents, my father was a lecturer at KU. Family yetu ni ya wasomi, so my father was a lecturer at KU, and so he got an opportunity to go and teach somewhere in Harvard for 3 years. That time I was just a baby. And so I don't know what was the agreement, but apparently I was left, and I was left with my grandmother, who was a bishop's wife. That I must say.
Just wait. So they went with mom and the other children, and you were the only one who was left?
I was the only child.
Oh, they were just the 3 of you.
I think they were extending their honeymoon, perhaps. Let's say.
So you were left with the bishop's wife?
Yes, who is my grandmother. And I must say a bishop's wife, because I have a journey to this bishop's wife. And so we went to stay with them. in Limuru. Carol, I think that was the journey of disaster, or if I may say so, the beginning. And that time is before even I gave my life to Christ. Way before, because I was a kid. I was, I think, 3 years old. And then we went to stay with her. So her and my grandfather, I don't think they were in good terms. So, because I could see everybody going to sleep in a different bedroom. But yeah, I was a kid, I didn't understand. But here was the journey. I met her. There's something called meeting hell personally. I don't even think I would like my daughter to go through that. And I was done all the things that a child, would I say somebody who doesn't know Christ would do to a child?
By your grandmother?
By my grandmother. And I went to school normal, but then again, she started removing her frustration of her marriage on me. Ingiamka asubuhi sina meno Karo. Where am I? So
she would be beating you?
Yeah, she would do drama when I'm sleeping. She would do very many dramas, but I'm going to give the key story that actually traumatized me, and it has taken me years to overcome. It has taken grace for me to overcome. So there was this, you know, when in Ushago there are those Togo cars who wake up early to sit in a shopping center.
Yeah.
And they just love kids. They don't even have any bad agenda. They're just happy to see their grandchildren. Because I'm more of a grandchild to that mzee. So I don't know what story they had with my grandma. And there was a commotion. So this is what happened. So one day I took a shule and I go home. And I'm told I should never see you saying hi to that mzee. So me, I'm like, why? And I'm told I have said. And the day I see you, I'll kill you. So I was like, hey, okay, all right. So I was like, all right, so how do I run away from him? So I could see him, and because he used to buy me sweets every day when I'm going to school, I ran away. So he realized there was a problem. So when he asked me, I was not able to tell him because I thought he would confront my grandma, and of course I'll be beaten. So the story changed as we continued. And this mzee was told that he has raped me. And you know those days when you're told you've raped a child, it was chaotic.
Yeah.
You are supposed to prove
that you did not do it.
Yes, even that I am supposed to prove that I was raped. Nguo kuraruriwa. You know those days, it's not like today, you go to a doctor, the semens are picked, and yeah. Those days you had to prove. Unenda kotini, they have to see. So because there was need for proof, you see she has already set the allegation, and mzae amekujiwa na polisi. And that guy was old. He was in his 70s, 75, 76. So amekujiwa na polisi, so see there's a proof for me to go to court. So we go to Limuru High Court. That was my first time na kotini, and I pray it will be my last time. When I went there, so my grandma had to prove. So this is the cream of the story. I was cut with the laser blade on my thighs.
She herself cut you?
Yes.
And
that night, when we were going for court case tomorrow, that night I was cut. You know the way you picture with a wembe cutting, so that it will look like there was a commotion. So that is what was done. And it was very painful. And then she took the firewood, and she said, see now my legs are like this. So she said, and if tomorrow you will not say what I said, I will kill you with this fire. So already, as a child, I can't talk about it. I can't tell any relative. So yeah, there we go. So we go to the court the following day. So of course, the judge was a woman. She takes me to her office, and I'm told to remove all the clothes. And then she sees all the marks.
They didn't even check if there was any...
No, they just saw the marks, the dress I was wearing. Of course, after nimekatakatwa nguo ilishikishwa damu and all that. Yeah, and everything I was asked was yes. And I was coached on what to say. So I just said it. And it was very sad because that man never touched me. That was a lie.
How old were you?
I was 5 years actually. And I was looking at my daughter when you told me I have to give this story, and I said I was her age when all this nonsense was happening. And I said everything because I was scared. And when we went back home, the same was done.
She continued cutting.
She continued to threaten me. She told me what. So my grandfather got to know about it. So he wanted to sneak me out. Chaos. It was chaos. So then he turned against him and said, ama pia unataka kulala na yeye. So my grandfather, so it is too much drama. He pulled off. But then the mzee was fungwad by there. Was taken to jail. So he was given a jail term of 10 years for something he never did. And I didn't know how to correct that. And my grandmother was very comfortable and very okay with the whole story.
And this whole time she's taking you to church?
She didn't go to church from there.
Oh, but your grandfather was in ministry, and they were
He
living
was
together.
the bishop. He was actually the archbishop then. I won't mention the name, but he was the archbishop then. And it was there was a lot of things. Most of the time I couldn't go to school, not because my dad didn't send school fees, but the money was eaten. So in our farm, we have a lot of pears and a lot of plums. So when the season is ripe, like now, I would be sent on that farm, kuzichuna, na nikauze.
And you're a baby.
Yes. I had to mature by force. And when my cousins came for Christmas, I was treated like a house girl. Like, even a house girl is treated better. I was treated, I don't know, like a what. Like, you should not even associate with them. You're not of their class.
And yet your dad is at Harvard.
I'm telling you this story. And so, apparently that year is when he came back, when all this was happening. So when he was coming back to see me and probably pick me, he found me kwa madhabahu ya kotini, testifying of things that he didn't understand. First of all, he knew it was true, so he felt very guilty. How could he have done that? Then when we came out, he decided, I'm not going back with my grandma, I am going back with him. That also brought a commotion between them. So when we went down, that's when my dad was wise. He took me to a place and he looked at me. He couldn't believe. But then kabsa. So he took me somewhere. He made sure I was treated. My legs were chaotic. You have all the, what do you call them? The cuts and all that. Because where are you putting on shoes? You're putting on shoes going where? Who's buying you shoes? So my dad had to make sure I was treated, and then he bought me clothes. Then we went somewhere, we ate, and then I told him the truth. I told him that man never did that. So he was very upset that why would his mother put me in such a trauma and then again jail somebody. So it was a traumatizing period, which now gave birth to other things. My dad tried his level best to compensate. Trying is not even trying. He was beyond trying. He didn't want to leave my side. As in, he was sorry. My mom was more of a don't care. Like, well, uko hai, it's okay. So we move on. And
this is the second most important female in your life?
Yes.
Doing, well, maybe not actively abusing you, like beating you,
but emotionally,
but emotionally withdrawn.
Yes. So it brought a very, very serious drift, both of us. My relationship with her was totally affected. I remember even I was in Form 2, I wrote her a letter and I told her I want her to take me to the grave where my mom was buried because she's not my mom.
What led to that?
She literally separated us with my bro. So My bro was favored. Yes, I have a brother. So my bro was more favored. I was never considered on anything. My voice was not heard. I was there to be seen, not to be heard. And actually things became worse. My dad passed on 2000. And I think, Carol, that was my darkest season, because I knew I've lost a friend. I don't have this person who
protects you.
Yes. Now I've been left with my enemies to fight for myself. And so one of my uncles, my dad's cousin, had to come in after the funeral, sneaked me out. We went.
From your own mother's house?
Yes. We went to his house in Eldoret. He used to work at State House then, during Moi's time. So he had a very big home. So nikaka huko for like 3 months, and then my mom was looking for me. So she decided to call him and said, Miss Jim mtoto wako wapi? All we want is our child. Where is our child? So he had to play that cycle because things were just off. And I stayed there quite a while, and we had a nice time. I was treated like, I felt there was a father figure that actually had taken over. It was case after case. After I came back, my uncle brought me back and lectured her. So I thought things are going to, they escalated.
Because I remember because I knew where you stayed. I mean, we didn't stay so far from each other. And I remember there were times when I'd see you to just be locked out and there would be no reason, and you'd just be by yourself, sitting outside your gate, and so sad. I remember thinking, this is a very sad person, even though I was a child myself. Yeah.
And everything that could happen, everybody in her family would know. I mean, everybody in both families knew my mom was against me, like 100%. And everything I did was off. And I remember she used to have a friend. And I remember that friend one day sat me down and told me, you know what, Susan, your mother is my friend, but I don't understand this passionate hatred towards you and your mom, and especially your mom. Everything negative is spoken. She would tell her friends they were bad, they were my rebellious child. And mark you that time, natoka home and a church. I could not even try to have a life. I didn't have a life. Even buying clothes was, by God's grace, nile tu meangukia. As in, so it became intense. Actually, for me, I normally say when my now husband came on board, became like an angel, because he showed me love that I have never experienced after my dad's death. He actually took the place of my father. And so he could see me every day. I remember there's a time I was bought this Siemens phone. So, you know, when you change the cover, I don't know how they were made. Its network just disappears. So, I have just said the network has disappeared. And sinilibaiwa simu ndio Joshua ache call Lingimade if he wants to talk to me. Wow. Everybody knew that I've been bought 60 phones and I've been spoiling them. So what now then boyfriend, my current husband, bought me a phone on my birthday. A very beautiful phone. So I went with it home. So she looked at it and she said, namengangana. You know, with that, like, yeah. And then I don't know what was her expectation, because she kept on telling me. And sometimes, I will say this because sometimes you need to cancel things, Carol, that have been said in anger by people who have authority over your life. She kept on saying that I'm going to get pregnant, and I want dogs, children for dogs. I don't know. You know the way you say it in Kikuyu? And I was like, okay. So I remember, you know. And I remember one time I looked at her and I told her, Mom, you know what? I will never get pregnant. But you, with this your hands, utanipeana, come and wear a full gown. So by that time, I didn't even know what I was saying. But in the spiritual realm, I cancelled the devil's agenda. And for sure, alinipeana na gown. I mean, in both families, I was the legacy keeper, because no one has ever gotten married without being pregnant or so. And then mimi ndio nimeolewa na pastor kwa hiyo family mzima. So it was like
God had a plan.
God had a plan. It was very painful.
And when some of this was going on, Susan, you were a believer, but this time you'd given your life to
Yes,
Christ.
yeah.
So how did you merge this very, and I know we have just touched the tip of the iceberg, but how did you merge this very traumatic, chronic love of affection and tie that up to a God that loves you? How did you make that connection? Or what was your view of God at that time?
I didn't have hope at that time. I didn't have hope at that time. I didn't believe anything else could have, not even a man could have saved me from what I was going through. Carol, it got to a place where my mom could cook food with my brother, eat and wash dishes.
And you're there.
I come from church, there's no food. It got to a place where I even started telling, I knew some of my friends would watch this and they will laugh because they were in that process where I could go to, there was a friend of mine, she was called Margaret, and I could pass by her house. She used to work then. She used to live alone. I eat and then I go home. So I used to tell my friends, Nimenda guest house, because I could just go there, sleep, and tomorrow I'm out. And she used to bring relatives. We used to stay with relatives, and they were treated better than I was. So I didn't give much attention to how I was treated. My fear was I get married and then I face the same journey. So I took a lot of time to be convinced that it won't be the same. So when we started dating with my guy then, she was like, okay, first of all, we're getting married to a very good family. The family is known. He's a pastor. He's handsome. So there was a bit of softness, and I don't know.
She hasn't let me down after all.
After all, she's tried, but I used to be told so many things, so many ugly things. Some of them I don't even think I have the confidence to talk about them. And
was there physical abuse?
Yes. Kuna time niligongangwa na kale ka grill kameko. So what was lucky is that nilinama, and because I'm short, ikapita. Otherwise it was going to get me on my face. And my bro was balanced. He didn't show hatred, but he could expose when they, the way you panga, like, I'm going to give you this nanny, then you'll come home drunk, then atai expose kwa meza. Like, mbona unanipanga alafu pangi sister, something like that. And sometimes I used to say it was God. I could go to that sanctuary at East and I would cry. I still remember that corner. As much as it was dismantled, I could remember that corner and would tell God, I don't know for how long I am here, but I'm giving up. I didn't see where God was taking me. I know when I was getting married, she acted like she was very happy, but I was a problem out of her life.
You were becoming somebody else's problem.
Yeah. And I remember when I was being held my hand by her to be given out, I turned, looked at that house. And yeah.
Okay.
I still remember very well being 13 years down the line. I looked at that house and I said, God, if you delivered me from this misery, I will serve you. Because for me, it was a misery. I suffered in that house. And even when my mother-in-law was receiving me, after we finished and went to visit her, she kept on asking me, Nambono ulilia sana hivo? And I said, you may never understand. But I said bye-bye to Egypt.
Amen.
And I also didn't think I left them in safe hands because I knew chaos was going to happen. So when I left the house and got married, things started happening at home. My bro turned against my mom. Now it became its phone calls after phone calls after phone calls. Carol, there are so many things that I would share to encourage somebody there, but what I discovered later, I was actually, nilikuwa nimepeana. I had, I don't know whether to call it a mild amnesia. When I was small, every time I would stay for like an hour, like the way we've spoken, I would go blank.
I remember.
I would go seriously
blank. We'd be talking
blank.
and you just...
Yeah.
And I thought it was your way of dealing with the trauma.
Yeah. So I would go blank. And before I got married, thank God for Mr. Joshua, he told God, he made a covenant, and he told God, I want to marry this girl, but I can't marry her with this condition. So if it is you who've spoken, heal her. And God healed me before I got married.
Amen.
None of my children has that inheritance. And I really, really thank God. It was an embarrassing condition because you'd go for a serious meeting, then you may black out. Then you may sahau conversation. Then when you have blacked out, you'd see things and voices, and you would be in your own world, and you don't know what that world is. Then you come back, then I will realize, oh God. So I survived through that in high school, even after high school. So what was scary is that 2 times I missed being hit by a bus. Because in my blackout, kati ya barabara. Na niki blackout nasimama. Basi ndio hii. So one driver was very upset. The second one was very graceful. Alishuka tu, alisimamisha basi, akashuka, hapo phase 4. Akashuka, akanishika mkono, akanikrosisha. And that relationship, even with my parents, with my mom, it took a tall order. It escalated to even when I got married, it got worse. Remember, there's a time we were going through a season of dry season. There was no food. And yet tukienda kwake freezer zimejaa, fridge hakuna space. So what my cousin used to do, angenipakia mchele, ananifichia. So when I go, she would take it somewhere to a neighbor, ananiambia ukikuja, ukitoka upitie kwa Wanju utachukua kitu iko hapo. So one day my mom discovered, I was called, kaulizwa ama kwake ni supermarket. I was told things, so I stopped. And that time I was pregnant with my firstborn. How did it affect my work with women? It really did affect my work with women. I didn't see a genuine mother. And anyway, even where I served, they didn't show the genuineness. There was no affection. And because I had gone through so much, the only thing that was remaining with me was to have something called self-defense. I had to protect my heart at all costs. So I would crash with people because they don't understand where I'm coming from. They would say lies. And that's the background I have come from. People being told things, lies about me. And that lady, I think the lady that I was telling you, my mom's best friend then, I met her the other day and she was telling me, I told you that one day you'll be a star, you will shine. And even those people who've taken you through that journey will be embarrassed. It has taken me over 20 years to look at my mom differently. Totally. And right now, she will call, she will talk to, she even tells people not to call her the name of Mama, yeah, now my bro, now she tells them to call them Mama Susan. And I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. How has it affected me? It has affected me that I can't trust my children with any relative.
And then I find it very amazing But in the midst of all this drama, that you're a mother of girls,
I know, right?
how did that affect the way you've raised your own children? Okay, I know you've just said that you feel you cannot trust them with people, but how did you not pass on the abuse?
Because I have gone through it and I know the pain. And I told God I have paid the cost. Even before I got pregnant, I remember I told God, I don't know what kind of children you're going to give me, but I know my husband wanted girls. And I told God, whichever prayer you desire to answer, one thing I know, God, that I will never separate my children. I will protect them at all costs. Give me that grace that I will love them equally. Carol, if I buy a shoe, whether it is the most beautiful for my firstborn or for my lastborn, I cannot buy if they're not two. And that is something I have always put, because I know it will affect their future. And I thank God so far, the only thing my children have adapted from me is confidence. You can't do what they don't want done to them. And I really thank God for that. They are self-independent. And that's what I've taught them. You have to stand for what is rightfully yours. You have to learn how to say no, even when everything else is saying, say yes. You must have your own stand. In the process of all that, I became so independent, very independent, that it was a problem even with my husband because, of course, guys want you to be awoshe. I am not brought in a woshe way, so I won't give you an woshe process. So, me, one of my friends tells me, Susan, you know, you think like a man and then you act like a woman. And I'm like, yeah. And I think I like it because I'm independent. It has taught me to love God and depend on God 100%. It has taught me not to trust just.
You know, a lot of people have gone through similar journeys and walked away from their faith. What made you stay?
At some point, God used to just see me through. The point, Carol, if I was to go deep to my story, I think I was caused for death. I think even in the bulletin of hell, my date for death was written. But God saved me. I survived because of His grace. I remember I went somewhere and one of the guys, these meetings we go for prayers, and one of the leaders looked at me and said, and he was Amzeh, may he so rest in peace, and he looked at me and said, how? I have never shared my story with anyone. I was like, how can a mother who pushed and went through labor hate her own child like this? Cara, I couldn't hold. I just cried. I knew this was God. I knew this man had just been spoken. And he walked, he was Amzeh. He held my hand and he told me, there is love. And as much as you feel there is no love, God has assigned angels to walk with you. That's why you've not died, Susan. And I was like, wow. And he went deeper and spoke things. Carol, if it is rejection, I have eaten it. If it is shame in this society, I have tasted it. Even when I was getting married, I think there were neighbors who were saying, we amefanya harusi. Still ngojea maajabu. God kept me. When you came to our court then, watu walikuwa nasema, we were two Susans. And people would say, Suzi wa church ama Suzi wa disco. So kama ni Suzi wa church, wanajua ni kwetu. I think by just being there, and sometimes we drift because we walk away. I normally say this, even if you're getting lost, get lost inside. Usikose kukam church. Usikose kuwa na fellowship. Utapatikana tu hapo tu. Because all those things were happening, but I was ever in church. I might not have been the favorite then, but I was ever in church. That grace, somebody somewhere, Carol, you will see me and know, Susan is not okay. And probably God will put a burden for you to pray for me. That grace kept me. I don't know who prayed for me then, but grace walked with me.
Yeah, because I remember, like I said before, you would always be at a certain corner. That time, East Church used to meet at the East Africa School of Theology, and you'd be at a certain corner. If you're not singing, then you'd be praying. So you found church to be home. Instead of running away, it became your safe space.
Yes.
Even though your first abuser was a minister of the gospel.
Yes. And then now here you are. The person who abused you was a bishop, so then you get married to a pastor. You know?
And you'll be different.
And I think that's where my passion for girls came from. I didn't even know I was going to give birth to girls, but I've always worked with girls. I've always desired their self-esteem. I have always desired to see them confident and working like you own it, you know. It has been my passion because I've been on that journey. I might never have spoken this story to someone, but I've been through pain, and I don't know your pain.
And
maybe
feeling like you don't matter.
Yeah, and you're like, you walk with your friends, wanakatiwa wewe umeachwa, because you don't look like you fit. And because rejection is your food, shame is your food, you can't be lovable, Carol. You can't be lovable. And I realized so many girls go through that and they don't talk about it. Some of them are abused by their own fathers. Some of them are abused by their own parents, relatives. You can't talk about it because this is your favorite uncle who is the favorite brother to your mother or to your father. So how do you deal with it? Apparently, to cut the long story short, the bishop's wife passed on. But before she did, she called me. And we made peace.
How was that for you? Was it difficult?
It was very difficult. It took my dad to convince me.
So what made you decide, I'm going to forgive you?
When my dad died, it was a long journey with my mom. And my aunt then, even her, she's late, she reached out to me. She told me we need to have a very serious talk between me and my grandmother. And I felt I needed to let go of baggages. It got to a space where God was prompting me to let go. And she was one of my main baggage, actually. And she was sick. For me, I look at it like it was God punishing her because she got several diseases. Who does that? You have diabetes, you have cancer. At the same time, you have hypertension. You have like 10 diseases that we don't even know where they're coming from, how. Then this time you've come to visit your daughter, you're being taken to the toilet, then mguu tu inavunjika peke yake. So I think she got to a place she was very tired and she needed to confess. So she pleaded with me that I should go. She used to live in Thika, so I went to Thika, got to the room. I remember I didn't even feel like eating anything, so I got there, I sat. I was just listening to her. I looked at her, I said, God, you know what? If I am the last voice, then let it be. And for sure I was the last voice. Because when she asked for forgiveness, she spoke, she said she's very sorry, she spoke, and then when I left 2 hours later, she died.
But at least it gave you some closure.
It gave me some closure. Then I started now looking for that mzee. Mwenye alikuwa amefungwa, nikaenda kumtafuta. Now the good thing is that I had grown up, I had changed, so even the children wouldn't recognize me because I was scared of how the family would take me. Only to go and find one of them. I didn't identify myself, but you know the way you're pigaing a story hapo ushago, then you ask, hey, na fulani alienda wapi? Then imagine he had died a week before I got there. And they had just buried him. I felt so helpless because I needed to go and apologize to that man. I was just a child and I didn't know their mess. So I was just put in the middle of their mess. So I felt I needed to do that closure as well, but he died.
So
then,
how did you forgive yourself?
It took a while. It took a while, but I overcame. I remember one time I went for a meeting and Pastor Walter was preaching and he said there are things that you can't be able to change anything. It happened.
Fix.
Just let it go and let God take over. I think that message was for me. So I let go. I actually started letting go. And that's how healing for me took place. And there are journeys that you will always walk, and some of them are very painful, be it marriage, be it parent, be it your childhood. But one thing I would encourage somebody who's going through this or is feeling like the whole world has come to a stop, let it go. Let it go. And running away from God doesn't change anything. It worsens because the devil takes over. If I left God's camp, we can bet Carol, I would be history.
You would be dead.
I would be dead.
So is there a specific song or a specific verse or something that carried you?
There were so many songs then, and I remember one of the songs that I don't remember whether I can remember it well, but it was written by Lydia Njeri. She used to be a writer. I think she even now does that. She's in States. And if it was today, the song I would sing was for the Chimbalonza, Kana Mini Usiku Sana.
Ebu sing a bit, Susan, because you're a singer. Just sing.
Really?
Yes.
Carol is fixing me here now. Look at you. Kana Mini Usiku Sana, usiniache gizani Bwana, msaada wako haukomi, mimi peke yangu kaa nami. And that pulled me through. Even when I go through hard situation and I can see darkness, that would keep me. That would keep me in my darkest hour. That song kept me. And I think, and he stayed with me on that darkest hour. And it could get darker, and at a point where I had to believe. And I remember you kept on rebuking me on that is it a gift, long suffering? I think some of us were called to fulfill that. Because even when I said now, I declared that getting married to this pastor, it's like I declared war. So the women on that congregants were against, because I didn't look like I fit to be married by that man. And it was all chaos. And I asked God, why? And by then I didn't know the seed of rejection was actually following me. And that altar was speaking so loud. So many things were said. Kara was even told I was pregnant with another man's husband, with another woman's husband. There were so many things that I was said, and I thank God. By then, Bishop Tembo was very wise. He didn't react because he walked with me. He knew my journey. He knew when my mother used to say, I wish I aborted you. He was in that space. And so he knew what I had to deal with. And I thank God then that Joshua didn't drift.
He stayed.
He stayed. He stood. And yeah. And here we are, parents, and serving in the same congregation. And every time I felt like quitting, the Lord told me, when you want to leave and I am about to set a table, then who am I setting a table for? Stay until you see me.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. God is faithful.
Yes.
Sometimes you could just be watching us and you're just wondering, does anyone see me? And I love the song. I love that song because God does stay and God does see. And God still has a plan, irrespective of what other people throw at you. So just stay. Just stay.
Just stay.
Just stay. And you know the verse that your story reminds me of is Romans 8:28. That all things, not just good things, but all things work together for good to those that love the Lord and are called in accordance to His purpose. So I wish you well in your journey as you minister to women, as you minister to girls, and as you mother your beautiful children, that you'll be a different mother and a different grandmother.
Amen. Yes, that part.
Amen.
Amen.
God bless you. Be encouraged, and we'll see each other next week. Bye.
Bye.